Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. I'm just going to wait for our panel to roll in while all of you guests, you wonderful people who've signed up to come and watch this today, are rolling in as well. Let us begin, though. Let's see what we've got going on. Here's some love in the chat from everyone who's here. I want to see in the chat, you can't hear me. Oh, I can't hear. Can you hear me, Vicky?
Yeah.
Vicky, I can hear you too. Hello. April, I can't see or hear you, I'm afraid. You may need to, I think there may be an extra button to push. Very exciting. Hello, Martin. I can see you've raised your hand. That's exciting. There she is. Hi, April.
Hey.
There she is. And we've got Matt as well. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Can I hear you?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I got you. Awesome. We're all here. We've all made it. The tech is working. Everyone who is at home, welcome. Hello. If you could drop in the chat where you are in the world today, that would be amazing. I'd love to see who is watching this and where. Be great to keep an eye and keep seeing where everyone is. Just to let everyone know, we are going to be doing a Q&A at the end of today. Someone says, just FYI, it is disabled. Chat is disabled, apparently. Sav, if you could fix that for me, that'd be great. We've got someone in Phoenix, Arizona. We're already international. I love to see it. Vicky, where are you? Remind me where you are in the world.
I'm in Yorkshire.
In Yorkshire.
UK. Yeah.
Wonderful. April, where are you?
I'm in Derbyshire.
And a beautiful part of
Derbyshire.
Are you in the office today?
No, I'm not in the office today. No.
I see. Very well. You just happen to be lucky enough to live there. Love that. And Matt, I think you put it in the chat.
I am representing the Welsh on the call. So I'm tuning in from Wales in the west of the UK, if you're not familiar. It's the little bump that sticks out the side of the UK. That's me, the bump.
I love the way we all say counties and you say a country. That is fantastic. Oh, that's cool. We got people from Brighton. Hello, Chris, Kieran. I see you in London over there. Got some more in Derbyshire as well. Wonderful. Well, as everyone's rolling in at the moment, again, just want to thank you all for joining us. Today, we are going to be talking about employer brand, and in particular, how you can have a competitive employer brand in 2024. I've assembled what I would describe as a world-class panel on this. I can think of three no greater people I want to have this conversation with, but rather than me try and fumble my way through some kind of introduction, I'm going to ask these guys to introduce themselves first. I'm going to start with, let's begin with Vicky. Vicky, would you mind introducing yourself and telling our audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'd love to. I feel like I've just shared my life story behind the scenes backstage already, so apologies to you all. Yeah, by day, I'm what you would call probably a business strategist. So I help businesses grow, evolve, and encourage culture drives and transformational change and things like that. So I operate at C-suite level currently. I work in the games industry, which is incredibly exciting, and has had much room for improvement for many years. It is still in its infancy as an industry, though. It's roughly circa 30 years old. So we have ample potential. And this topic today is one of my absolute passionist parts of my role. Ted's known me for many years and has seen what I've contributed to businesses previously to my current one. And yeah, hopefully I will share some usable insights today.
No, hopefully about it. I'm absolutely certain. Thanks, Vicky. Having watched what you've been doing for the last few years, I can't wait to discuss with you some of the things you've been up to. Let's go over to Matt. Mr. Matt Davis, would you mind introducing yourself and telling the audience a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Ted. Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Davis, and like Vicky, I am also a business consultant and strategist. I tend to work with leaders that really want to align around their future vision. And so that very much plays into what we're going to be talking about culture, but my specialism is in brand. My background is in marketing. And really, as time's gone on, I've kind of crept up the chain, if you like, and find myself now working in boardrooms.
Oh, has he gone?
Frozen.
He works in boardrooms, though. We can tell. We know. I was fortunate enough. I met Matt. I think it was one of the first times I met you, April, when he was talking at Cooper Parry. Matt, we lost you for a second. I'm sorry.
I know I just said all the great stuff then, and then I looked up and everyone was like, ah! And I was like, oh. Either I've said something hugely impactful or I've cut out of the internet. Where did you lose me?
We lost you. I work in boardrooms.
Oh, I just said something like I work in boardrooms all around the world, and you know, I'm really excited to be here today. There's nothing more profound than that, but thanks for having me on, Ted.
It was supremely profound, though. Thank you, man. And April, would you mind just introducing yourself, telling everyone a bit about you?
Of course, yeah. So I work in house rather than as a consultant. So I'm Chief People Officer for Cooper Parry, which is an accountancy firm based in the Midlands, and we have offices in London and South and in the Northwest as well. So a stereotypically dull and boring profession, I would say, but Cooper Parry is anything but that. And hopefully I'll share a bit about that with you in a little while. But yeah, responsible for people and culture at Cooper Parry.
Yeah, amazing. And like, again, not your typical accountancy firm. Very excited to get into it today. So though, we're here to chat. Quick, I don't think there's any more housekeeping to do aside from just jumping right in, I think, unless we want to go somewhere else. But let's begin.
Ted, you should introduce yourself.
Oh,
Tell
me,
us about
little
you.
old
Come
me. Oh, go on then. So, hi, if you've not met me before, hi, my name is Ted Hewitt. I am the head of business development here at the People Experience Hub. We support businesses with their employee listening. So, whether that is surveys, whether that is people insights and analytics, things like lifecycle, pulse, annual engagement, whatever it is. We've been working with businesses big and small to help them drive really great people data out. My role here, though, is really, really cool. Business development, typically, I think in lots of businesses, is very much a sales orientated role, which, you know, I do a bit of that. But really, we're here talking about and building community, creating connections, and actually trying to do great things in the world. This is one of the reasons why I get to run this webinar series. And candidly, I have absolutely no guidelines of what is demanded of me other than make fun and useful things for our audience, which is why we are here today. How great is this? So though, now I think we've done the intros. Let us kick off with what the meat of this topic. Employer brand. I have been a fan of employer brands for a long, long time. They are obviously the first thing you see when you think about applying for jobs, and you might not even know it exists yet. It's out there floating in the ether. But I thought before we get into, like, you know, how you can make yours competitive, I actually want to ask each of you, like, how you think about employer brand, and I guess how you would go about defining it. And I'm actually going to start with Matt, because I've seen you talk about this all the time. I've seen in some of your stuff. So Matt, how do you define employer brand?
So yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I think it needs defining, right? Because it's such a strange alien thing to most of us. I'm going to take a step back, if I may, and just talk about brand generally, and then dive into employer brand specifically.
Go for it,
okay. So I define brand as the meaning people attach to us and our offer, if you like. That's our brand. It's not just the logo and the fonts. It's actually what people feel and think when they come across any aspect of what we're doing. And branding is the crazy attempt to try and manage that meaning. And, you know, as we know, that's super important for any business looking to grow and thrive. We need to, you know, be careful about what we're doing, how we're doing it, what we're providing. And so we need to manage the way that that's done, particularly if we're scaling and growing. So employer brand, what is that? Well, that's particularly an aspect of the management of meaning, which is how do we manage the meaning that employees and potential employees attach to us. And so that's very much how I see it. And a core component of that is how we really think about our culture. And the culture, you know, the classic expression is the culture is how we do stuff around here. But the sort of more formal definition would be the behaviors, customs, and beliefs that a business has internally. And so we need to think about those. We need to try and manage those, and we need to make sure that that's all you know, considered and designed, because that stuff, as April no doubt will tell you, doesn't actually happen by accident.
Awesome. Like that seamlessly transitions over. April, would you mind explaining a bit about how you see employer brand?
Yeah, I mean, lots of synergies with what Matt said there. I think there's that quote, and I'm probably going to say it wrong, because when I try and say a quote in a place where lots of people are listening, it comes out back to front. But you know that people don't remember you for what you said, but for how you made them feel. Yeah. And for me, that kind of sums up what brand is about. And equally, you know, you mentioned there, Matt, about how culture is what we do around here, but actually for me, culture is how we make people feel around here, whether that's our employees or whether it's our clients. And so it can culture can just happen, right? But it just might not be a very good one or a very positive one, and therefore your brand isn't very positive or well perceived. So if you do nothing, something will organically happen. So you do have to put some effort into really articulating what is it that you want people to feel, and what is it that you want people to say about you, and that then comes through in your brand. So your culture is your brand is a big kind of statement that we talk about quite a lot. You can have a great website, and you can have, you know, brilliant offices, and you can have some clever marketing strapline, which is all fantastic, but it's not enough on its own. That brand is that lasting footprint that you leave on people, whether that's as an individual or as a business. So there's a lot of talk now about our personal brand and working on our personal brand, and particularly with younger people as they're entering the world of work. You know, people questioning, what do you want your personal brand to be? And that, years ago, I remember working in places where your early career students, you'd get an image consultant come into the office for them and tell them how to dress, which is just like, makes me feel a bit sick now. And I think of businesses doing that. Now it's much more about, how do you want to be perceived? What do you want to be remembered for? Which is what it's all about for me.
I love that. Viki, I'm going to ask you the same question, if you don't mind. Because I particularly knowing a bit about your background and the world you've come through, talent attraction has been really key. But I know also knowing you now that it's kind of deeper than that. So yeah, how do you think about employer brand?
Yeah, so over the years, my whole stance on employer branding and employees has changed somewhat, because I did start out in the world as a consultant in terms of recruiting for companies, all shapes and sizes, all different culture types as well. And sometimes you wouldn't necessarily like the clients that you were hiring for, and you had to sell them to that space in order to hire into them. And if you didn't believe in their values and culture, that was very difficult. And over the years, I decided to define what it meant on their behalf. And it's kind of grown over the years as my roles have adapted through HR and you know, chief of people to, you know, chief strategy, that it impacts everything that you do. So yes, we all have marketing campaigns, we have marketing departments, and we have strategies in terms of, you know, creating a brand. But for me, like, how I would define it is, how do people eat with their eyes, right? So you go window shopping, you look at menus and you look at food. How do you look at your future employer, and how do you look at your current employer? Are you fulfilled? You know, are you nourished? So they eat with more than just their eyes. And I think, you know, we can all have the basic frameworks of marketing and we can put those on the platforms, but what is it we're saying? That is what's really important. So for me, employer branding is about values. So it's about value-led recruitment. Who you're hiring, do they embody what you are as a company? Do they represent what you're wanting to put out there into the world? You know, ethics and integrity, the things that you're saying, are you actually doing? Because there's one thing that I hate doing, and that's tick box exercises. We don't, you know, showcase everything that we do into the, you know, to the internet and to the public. As a business at Airship, you know, we do things because we want to do them, and our people believe in it, whether that's celebrating, you know, Chinese New Year or introducing menstrual leave and things like that, is because we've listened to who it is that works for us. And that's, I believe, how you develop a true culture, is by being employee-led internally, and that is what you leak out, is your employee brand.
It's how you talk about that gets really challenging, though, right? Because it's how do you convey that messaging, like, in short form. What April was saying, I think, is really true. There's a lot of focus on the marketing end of the branding thing, but it's then living it seems to be
I think it's really that embodiment. You're right.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by integrity and ethics. Are you a value-led business? I'm not talking about having manifestations on the walls and things like that. I'm talking, is it, you know, embedded in your way of life at your company? So we have value-led appraisal processes, we have value-led recruitment. And I think then that is showcased in reputation. So that's my take on it.
I love that. Thank you. That actually, you touched on something really interesting there about values, because I think when So certainly like in the HR sphere that we exist in, the values is obviously perceived and can be perceived as just like series of statements or tick box exercises. But I know just particularly Viki and April, just thinking about your like in-house lives, I know it means more to you than that. April, I know if I think then about like Cooper Parry and the journey that you guys have been on, like what were some of the components that led you to build that culture? Was it things like vision, mission, values? Like did you, and were those like, how did you go about applying those to create the brand you have today?
Yeah, I mean, it started much more simply than that. I mean, when I mean, it was before my time, really, and Cooper Parry has been around a long time, right? So 1800s was founded, so steeped in a lot of history. And you know, we flash up an image when we kind of share our culture story of the founding partners of Cooper Parry, just to highlight actually that it's like 7 men, 7 white men, all wearing suits and bow ties, and you know, it's a great picture. But then we flash kind of forward to about 2008. And there's another picture of the leaders of Cooper Parry at that time that are all also white men in suits and ties. And that's not that long ago, 2006, 7, 8. Today, it looks very, very different. And really, I guess the catalyst for change back around then was when our CEO, Aid, joined. Him and a group of what were kind of 30-somethings at the time, a few years down the line now, they just wanted to work for something different. They'd all come from big 4 accountancy firms, you know, stereotypical accountancy firms, and didn't like it, you know, and didn't like to admit at a party that they were an accountant. It was, you know, everyone would walk out of the room, you know, one way to clear a room is say that you're an accountant. And so they just wanted to create a place where they would enjoy coming to work and have fun. And it started really as simply as that, like, how can we make this fun for us and for the people that work for us? Because words like culture and brand, and you know, they weren't really used back then. They're buzzwords now that we talk about a lot, but it came from a place of genuine, you know, we spend a huge amount of our time at work. We probably spend more time with the people that we work with than our own families. So we're only here once, we may as well be having a good time whilst we're doing it. And that's kind of, you know, bled through now into the culture today. It's just evolved over time to become more sophisticated, I guess, around values and defining what the culture means and measuring it and all of that stuff. But I mean, our values is one thing that was very much crowdsourced internally. So it wasn't a group of execs or the board or me sat in a room going, they sound like good values, let's write those and then let's stick them on the wall for everyone to walk past. You know, they came from asking our people what makes a great CPer, what are you seeing consistently in a great CPer, and lots of back and forth and lots of conversation and lots of collaboration, where we got to a point where they felt like they sounded like us as well. They didn't sound like, you know, everyone else's values. And did they resonate with people that we want to work with? We talk a lot about the layover test when we're hiring or when we're working with people. And you know, this person that I'm chatting to, if I got stuck in an airport with them for 6 hours because my flight was delayed, would that fill me with joy or would it fill me with dread? And if it's going to fill you with dread, they're probably not right for Cooper Parry. Yeah, and it's simple, you know, it's simple principles. It's trying to not overcomplicate things too much. I mean, and we try to ingrain and embed our values through fun, real life ways, rather than just them being on a piece of paper that is never dug out of the drawer, which has definitely happened in other places I've worked for sure.
As it has, I think most people on this call, I think, have probably had that experience. Viki, I kind of want to throw that to you as well, just in terms of like the kind of culture question, because like, again, like values, mission, vision, games industry is an interesting place. Do you find that is part of your like the employer brand narrative at the moment? And is it like a powerful tool for you, or is it, I don't know, is it just something you kind of are forced to have?
I think every company is forced to think about it on a daily basis, but I also think it's a choice as to whether you go for kind of that box ticking sort of culture or off the shelf sort of, you know, mentality of, well, everybody does this, so we'll do it, or and not really base it on who it is that works for you. They chose you to begin with, so you've got that initial question of why are people still here? You know, what are we offering those that that have stuck it out thus far. But it's also a question of who's coming and how do they know about you? What do they know about you? But culture drivers are tools and resources, I think, that an employee owes their workforce. So you're not going to get a workforce that is, you know, flourishing or growing or evolving or developing without certain, you know, tool sets. You know, we have introduced, so working as a consultant, I'm sure Matt will know this as well. In the past, obviously I'm employed and, you know, embedded in a company now. If you see the good, the bad and the ugly, especially when you're working for a portfolio of clients, you know, you'll have seen it all, and therefore you build your own toolkit of what to do and what not to do. And I'm incredibly lucky to have seen a lot of things over the years, things I would rather not repeat, experience again. But for me, it's led from the top. You can't move forward with a business with a positive culture, with transformative change in this era, in this day and age, unless you have the buy-in from the top. But really, they must want to want it. And I'm so lucky that at Airship, I am given that autonomy because we have the same vision. Like, you know, April's mentioned, we want people to be their best selves, and by offering them career pathways, job levels, job bandings, healthy and livable salaries, we're giving them everything that they need in order to become the best version of themselves. You know, in terms of safety and comfort, you know, we go above and beyond in all aspects of you know, what we offer employees, I think. And communication. So last year, my particular slant on the business strategy was transparency and accountability. So the SLT were completely exposed. We held town halls on our own as well, and explained business vision, business choices, why we were making certain decisions to the employee set. There was no smoke screens or anything like that, or, you know, cloaks of mystery around why we were doing certain things as a company. It empowers people. They feel part of those decisions as well. But yeah, removal of blame cultures and old legacy ways of working as being something that I'm quite proud to take to each company, is that transformative push. You don't always have to do what you've always done, because you take what they're wanting to achieve and you take where they're at and you get them there via a strategy. So for me, you know, I think about capacity, understanding, accountability, you know, give them ownership for who they are, you know, as an employee, you know, recognize them, reward them, you know, give them career development opportunities. You know, if there are true pathways, true appraisals, true feedback, nobody would ever want to leave, apart from natural attrition, of course. But culture will always be difficult. It's employee led, in my opinion. You give them all of that and they create the culture. Much more than that, I think you're almost hand holding. But yeah, I think that, you know, that we're doing a good job. I wouldn't say that we're perfect. There's a long way to go. But given what I've experienced over the years, crikey, yeah, Airshippers are very lucky.
Oh, mate, that's good to hear as well. I want to zone in on something else, and I'm going to throw this one to Matt, because obviously we talk. I think when we say employer brand, a lot of focus does go into the sort of talent attraction and retention piece. Attract, engage, retain, I think, is the phrase I've seen around a lot. But I know it can do so much more than that. And Matt, I'd love your take on like some of the other aspects that employer brand can unlock for you as a business.
Yeah, well, I mean, the simplest one is growth, right? Just simply like just putting hard-nosed commercial kind of thinking together, right? If you have a happy workforce that is connected, engaged, they are you know, better at communicating. They're going to pull out all the stops when the chips are down. They're going to stay late. They're going to do what they can because they love working for the company. That's what you want, right? That's what you need. And I have this expression: your EX, your employee experience, will affect your CX, your customer experience. So if you put attention into employee experience and your employer brand, no doubt, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that will ripple its way out and customers will notice. If you go into an Apple store, right, and you talk to your average, I know everyone uses Apple, but we know Apple, right? So bear with me, but you talk to your average sales rep, I don't even know, they don't even call them sales rep, they call them something else, I don't even know, but you go and you talk to them, they are passionate about the product, they're passionate about the brand, they love working there, they really understand it, they're engaged, switched on, and that shows. And you walk away, no matter what the interaction, even if you don't buy something, thinking, do you know what, that was a really switched on person, like they gave me some good information, I felt good about that, going back to the points we made earlier about how people feel. That was a good brand interaction. So that's what you need. That's what you want. The worst thing you can do is not put the attention in and have a complete disconnect and a disengaged workforce. In fact, you can have people sabotaging your own business from within because you don't pay enough attention and you don't work with them on the culture and the brand that's required. And it can become toxic and that ekes its way out. So I work with a lot of businesses that are scaling. They see growth opportunity in their market. They need the talent to help them to scale to reach their commercial goals. That's why leadership teams should pay attention to culture and to what's going on. And, I think a lot are, a lot of the people I come into contact with are, often the challenge is, well, how do we go about this? And often we do this veneer, this box ticking exercise that Viki was talking about. And yeah, we've got the values and we slap them on the wall and we then completely ignore them in terms of the cadence, the actual way we do business, what happens beyond that. So we could perhaps talk a bit about that. And I've got some thoughts to share, but I don't want to, talk too much. But that's the reason why this is important. That's why it's not just about attracting talent, retaining talent. It's actually about how you grow and do business with your supply chain, with your partners, with your customers. That if you really want to grow, look at your culture.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, April, that's what you and me talked about last week, I think, was like that perception of employer brand being a bit light and fluffy and one of those things. But rather than actually kind of, because I feel like you'll echo Matt's point a lot here, I actually want to zone in on maybe a bit about the how. So like, as I know that Cooper Parry has obviously gone out, done amazing things with its way it communicates who it is and why it's special. But like, from your perspective, like, how have you gone about understanding and measuring that effectively return on investment, if you think about it, of having great culture and having a great employer brand?
Yeah, I mean, I can't stress enough the commercial impact that a positive culture has as well. I do completely echo that. And we get a lot of people that don't know Cooper Parry well, but hear of a few things that we're doing. Say two things. One is that, does anyone actually do any work? And secondly, how do you actually make any money? Like, surely you don't really make any money, which always makes me smile, because I've never worked harder than I've worked at Cooper Parry, or faster than I've worked at Cooper Parry. And in terms of our commercial growth, I mean, we're at 30% organic growth over the last few years, which in general is astronomical. In the accounting profession is, unheard of. And take away kind of growth through acquisition. That is, without a shadow of a doubt, a direct impact of how our people feel and how hard they therefore then want to work for our clients, and that our clients stay with us and we can upsell to them and they refer us to other people. It's a no-brainer, like, to have a good culture and a positive employer brand if you want to grow your business. So I could get on the soapbox all day about that, but so the how we've done that, I guess, is just echoing a bit of what Viki said. I mean, the transparency and the trust and the accountability are critical. Without that, you've got a team of robots doing things the way you've always done them, without challenging and without you able to grow and to learn and to change. And we always start with the position of, why wouldn't we tell you something, as opposed to why would we tell you? So examples of that are, we've done 6 acquisitions this year. Every acquisition we have communicated to our people before we've completed, which is high risk, because
that's brave.
They could not go through, and then we told people we're acquiring a business, both our people and the acquired businesses people. But we felt it's really important to have that openness and honesty with them, because people start to see people going in rooms and having conversations, and then the rumour mill starts and they wonder what's happening, and they make up their own story about it then, which is often not the right story, and people are unsettled and unhappy, and they leave before they even know what's going to happen, because they think something bad's going to happen. So that upfront honesty and trust people to make the right decisions by the business. You know, we hire adults that are capable of making sound decisions, and sometimes we'll make the wrong decisions, sometimes we'll fail, but every single time, I guarantee, the individual and the business will learn from that. So we've got a really experimental culture. We want people to kind of play with ideas, to test things. Very rare that someone will come up with an idea and we'll say no. We just say, okay, find a way to make it happen, which I think is really, really important, to allow people to spread their wings and grow, and give them autonomy and give them variety. So that there's the how in terms of, we measure through, we do a weekly happiness survey, we do, engagement surveys, the standard things which, you have to do to kind of be able to explain the return on investment that you're putting into some of these things. But the how really is the more intangible stuff that's hard to explain to people. But it's that, just don't clip people's wings, let them go, let them be who they are. You've hired them for a reason, because you clearly think that they're good. And if you haven't, then your hiring process is wrong. So the first bit is actually making sure you've got a really robust quality hiring process that is values based, and because most people can do the job. The CV, you don't really need to see what's on the CV. It's, are they going to fit in your organization? Are they going to get on with people? Are you going to be able to trust them to make the right decisions? Do they have an entrepreneurial mindset where they're prepared to take risks and prepared to be brave? That's really important to us. So that how we hire is, again, probably one of the most fundamentally critical things to ensuring that our culture continues to be the way that we want it to be. I mean, I'd rather talk about that how rather than the how. We've got a management development program. We train our managers on how to, hopefully be the world's best managers, and to have.
That was slightly distracting. That's really interesting, and I think actually leads into something I was thinking about for Viki in particular as well. That drive for both like recruitment and like competitive edge, and how all of these sort of tangible things about, and I think what you mentioned, some of the stuff there is about the internal like measurement stuff as well. Like, how do we know we're doing a good job with our people? But Viki, I wonder actually, does Airship and some of the work you've done, do you look at like the external measurement stuff as well? You look at, and how your brand, I guess, is perceived in the outside world, maybe partly through candidate experience, but also, I don't know, like, are there any other mechanisms that you use to do that?
Yeah, so Matt touched upon something in terms of employee experience versus, customer experience, and he hit the nail on the head there for me. Your output is everything to do with the input internally. So, April touched upon, it all starts with who you hire. So if you nail that, then you are well set to be nailing the rest of it. You hire the right people, and the right people will then carry the business to where it wants to be. So like Matt, I've spent many years looking at kind of, getting companies from A to B, and helping them understand what that journey looks like, and what sacrifices sometimes that they have to make. So, there's been quite a journey there in terms of, educating and learnings, and I could talk for hours as well, like April could, about, how retention equals growth, and future, and flexibility, and relativity, and all those sorts of things, how they contribute. But it's reputational value. So like I said before, if you're doing what you're saying, your people become brand ambassadors. So the games industry is very conference based. There's a big conference season. It's quite incestuous in terms of everybody knows everybody. To say its scale is like, I think, third or fourth largest in the world in terms of industry size. So the circuit is kind of where a lot of the magic happens in terms of word of mouth and reputational value. We could all go on Glassdoor and we could all moan about our past employers, and much of it is BS, as we all know. It's like TripAdvisor, but for employees. It would be a very different world if employers could have a version of that for the employees that leave. But there would be many lawsuits, I think, to follow. But I guess putting the work into your company is then what equals the external value. So I would put more weight on that and effort than I would marketing budget, because it's the people that spread that message. They could be in the pub on a Friday night and their mate works for another games company who's having a really terrible time. And, you know, our employee might feel really bad because they're having a great time, but, you know, that equals, well, why don't you come talk to our talent partner and, you know, see if there's any openings there for you? And that's how our world works. Not so much in the commercial scene. When I worked in that for 12 years, it was very much, you had to more seek out these opportunities, I think, than it was, you know, passing word. You know, you could have the best marketing campaign, you could have the biggest marketing budget, but your company values could still stink. And therefore you could churn out tens of 20s of employees every quarter. So it would differ, I think, industry to industry. You know, I work in a very hobbyist industry, so people will put up with a lot of crap just to say that they've worked on a specific game with a specific studio. But you wouldn't probably get an accountant doing that, you know. So it's about empowering our employees and making them know their true value and what you know, what they should and shouldn't put up with, really. I think, you know, there's a basic hygiene model that everybody wants in life. You want an employer that looks after you, pays you a livable wage, pays you value, you know, value-led wages as well, but also offers you a future. So that's my job, is to make sure all our kind of people strategies and business strategies align, because you can't have one without the other, because one feeds the other. So for us, you know, we provide artwork for all major titles that you'll play at home with your kids, with your partners, etc. And so we have a real eclectic mix of individuals, from programmers to artists to digital animators to, you know, VFX people who may have very different needs to what, you know, people who work for April or, you know, the clients of Matt's might look like. So I would always say, know your people, therefore your brand will follow. I think, you know, learn. Don't be afraid to get things wrong and apologize for getting it wrong as an employer. You know, stand up and say, we made a mistake, guys, we're really sorry, but this is how we're going to fix it, and this is how we're going to learn from it and move on. If you have humility as an employer and integrity, your people will stay and your people will tell other people about it. And I think that's where the effort needs to go, not in your marketing budget.
Through that, I always think about something that I saw you talk about once, Matt. I'm sure it's on one of your talks, which is about what the definition of brand is, what people say when you're not in the room. I think about that a lot. Like, what are people saying about me when I'm not in the room? But to kind of expand on that, actually, Matt, I was wondering, like, because I think one of the things Vicky's really touched on there is just this like alignment piece, right? It's not just employer brand doesn't live in isolation, and it can't live with one person. I think like a lot of HR initiatives, it probably is one of those things that gets given to HR and told this, like, improve our employer brand, but there are so many stakeholders, marketing, C-suite, like managers, employees, right? Like, how do you go about aligning everyone, and how do you go on about, like, I guess, making sure that everything is consistent and contained within that brand feel? How do you create consistency across that?
Yeah, this is such a big question, right? So bear with me as I try and unpack it, because I think that we can always, all of us could probably present a lovely like diagram with like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and the reality is it's like a mess. Like, you go forward and backwards, and people leave and new people come in. I think the number one principle that I've observed is that it always takes longer than you think it's going to take. You know, you say, okay, you know, I've heard this webinar, I'm a leader in an organization, I'm going to get to grips with my culture, you know, and you think that'll be like a 6-month process. It's never ending process. And even just to define what good looks like can take longer than you anticipate. So just bear that in mind. That shouldn't scare you, right? Because it's about intent, I think, is the key thing. And if you want to grow your business and you want to make sure you have a great team, everybody's happy, that is just having that intent, I think, is the first sort of step. But then how do you begin to do it? And I think really, we've touched on this a little bit, and both April and Vicky have, but I think number one, you need to define what good looks like. So you need to work at, you know, where's the commercial side? Yes, where do we want to go? What culture do we need, and do we feel that we want to lead our business towards? And where are we now? So you need to kind of do a bit of discovery analysis, you know, as, you know, almost like check the wheels as the car's rolling. Like, why is it going in this direction? What's happening there? Who's driving it? You know, who's in the back seat? Who's in the front seat? What does this look like? And you need to do that I agree at leadership level. Okay, so we need to listen to leaders, but also everybody else, like bottom up, and that's why, surveys and so on are so important, is to get a snapshot at the start of the process. You need to also signal that this is the start of a process, that we're going to be looking at our culture and we're going to make sure that this is a priority for the business going forwards because we care, and all of that stuff. So you've got to start that process. One of the things I love to do is analyze existing values with businesses. And so we get the old school values up in the middle. I do this workshop. I love doing this workshop with leadership teams. What are the values? Everybody has the traditional values like innovation, transparency, honesty. It's like, well, duh, everybody would do that. But anyway, let's just take where you are today, shove them up on a board. And then what I love to do is get the leaders that are involved, and focused externally to the business. So business development, sales and marketing, businesses, people in customer success, the leaders of those, and say, okay, look at that, look at those values. How do you prove to customers that you as a brand value those things? Like, what evidence is there actually that we do value those things? Like, let's have some post-it notes. It could be anything. Whack them on the board. And then I get the people focused within, like the leaders and the people managers and the HR. Can we call them HR anymore? I don't know, but the people. And I say, look, here's the values. What evidence have we got to prove to our people that we really value those things? What is it? And often you find, if you do that exercise, there are gaping holes in what we think we say and what we think we believe and the reality of actually what we're doing. And then if you add to that a survey of what our people are actually thinking and feeling, the shock can be quite real. So, okay, that's nerve-wracking. That's where we are today. Well, where do we want to go? So then that's where, the work needs to begin to figure out, what does good look like? I think you need to define not only kind of the core vision, mission, values, all that good stuff. You need to define other things nowadays. I think a good employer brand will consciously think about what routines are in the business, what support and well-being are we giving our people, what rewards outside of the monetary rewards of a normal job, but what other things would somebody expect from us as an employer? What's the environment I'm going to work in? We've got hybrid situations, we've got remote situations. Well, what does that really mean? And how are we going to look after people in those environments? And like Viki said, everybody wants opportunity. We want to grow as people. And some people don't actually. Let me just recorrect myself there. Some people just want to go to work and do a great job and go home. And we almost need to be like, that's okay. But if you do want to get ahead, we need to open up those options and explain to people how they can get ahead, and that there are those opportunities and they need to be communicated. So all of that needs kind of packaging up somehow. And I often find that after you've done the work in all of those areas, just having a little diagram, a pyramid, a circle with a wheel, or a temple or something, our brand, can be articulated in one slide. This is what we're about, this is our ambition, and this is what you can expect to us, goes a really long way of kind of getting things going. But final point is, I really think that all of that's lovely, it's on paper. It's like, how do we actually begin to move towards that? And there's a kind of key tool that I like to use. I don't know if Viki and April use this, but as a consultant, what I tend to do is advise my clients to set up, I would call them listening posts if I was talking to a leadership team. But I'd never communicate that to the company that it's a listening post. It sounds a bit military. But what we usually call them is culture champions or culture stars or words to that effect. And basically, these are employees within the company from all different parts of the company at different experience levels and different parts, of the organization, that would meet on a fairly regular basis. And they would maybe only for half an hour, could be an hour. And they would have a facilitated session around key things that are coming down the track from that the leadership team are aware of. Okay. And it would need whatever comes out of that. It's anonymous, whoever says anything, but it's reported and taken seriously by the leadership team and responded to by the leadership team. Now, what that does, it's kind of a two-way thing between employees and leadership. And it's a way that leadership can make sure that as they're making decisions and as the culture, as we're moving towards the utopia of the defined culture that we want, we are listening and we're adapting where necessary and changing. And I've found that that's an incredibly useful tool. both for leaders, but also for other members of the population who can go to their culture champion with a concern and know that that would be heard if it's big enough at the top level. So that's just a little bit of thinking there. But one final thing, and then I will shut up. The key to a good brand strategy is uniqueness, I find. Okay, so we've talked about the power shifting from the employer really to the employee. And so employees talk, like Viki said, they recommend. But why would somebody join you over a competitor in your marketplace? What makes you different? That isn't often necessarily all the perks and the things that might be part of it. But really, people want purpose. Since the Great Resignation, people want to belong to something they feel they're doing some good in the world with. So what is that? And why is that different to everybody else? That's what I think you need to unlock. And that needs to become core to then your culture strategy to move towards that place.
I absolutely love that. Thank you. And honestly, there's so much to unpack in there. I could probably do a whole webinar just on like the very like how do you even go about doing this, which maybe we will do later in the year. But in the short piece there's a few things I think you touched on. One in particular that jumps out at me is like feedback's a gift, right? I think feedback is a beautiful tool. And when I think about all of the tools that you have, and there's some of the ones we've talked about here, things like Glassdoor, it might be a survey, it might be like even just your P&L statements, right? Like, are we doing the right things? Are we moving in the right direction? Are we kind of winning? One of the big tools I see out there for employer brand is awards and accreditations. And I actually like, because it's a little bit of a controversial one, because one of the things I've become aware of as I live in this industry is, they're not cheap. They're a huge amount of effort. They usually involve like a number of different stakeholders and various rounds and like different processes around that. None of which, or some of which are useful and valuable, but not all of them are going to give you like deep analytical insight or like, a path to success. A lot of the time it can feel a little tick boxy, just like from hearing it from other people. But I wanted to throw it to the panel about awards and accreditation. I'm going to start with Viki, if you don't mind, about, are you for them? Are you against them? Is it something do you think it is a valuable thing as part of your employer brand toolkit?
Before I answer that question, I just want to say kudos to Matt. That was a really insightful little snippet into your world. Culture clubs, brand ambassadorships are something that I've tried to instill in every business that I've been to. So very much round tabling, the ears and the eyes of the workforce and giving them a platform to speak freely in a safe space, with actionable task lists that SLT approve, deny with reason. I think it's incredibly important. It's something that we're yet to pilot at Airship. We tried in 2022 and it was, I don't know, maybe during a period of transition that there was still trust to build and they didn't really see a benefit in it. So it's something that we'll trial again at some time in place. The values workshops are so valuable. I can't drive that home enough. And I run similar workshops. So amazing work. And I'd love to speak to you more like offline about all that kind of stuff. But accreditations, awards, they're lovely to have, aren't they? On the shelf at work. Oh, we're the best employer, we're the best this, or we're the best that. I think, we've just recently won an award, one that I think I am the proudest of all of the awards I've been, I suppose, lucky enough to be part of across my career to date, because of how much effort goes in behind the scenes in creating the wonderful things that we offer the industry. Very much employee driven in terms of everything that we won it for is for output. It's their work and their effort. And so you had to get me off the ceiling that evening. However, there are some that, are survey based, and then you get like best place to work in the games industry and vice versa. You'll have seen them, Ted, when you've worked in that semi, overlapping industry. And it's who you know. It's not, what you're achieving. It's not, what you've managed to accomplish within a year. It's a moment in time, reflection on how your staff are feeling. If it's just after, promotional activity and you've got some disappointed employees, it's not going to reflect well on that survey. So it's about timing. It's about knowing how your staff feel all of the time, rather than just that one moment in time when you're fulfilling a requirement or an application form. But just be honest. I think when you're going for those certain things, and the ones that are well deserved will come to you in time. But what's more rewarding, I think, is how your staff feel regardless of those things. And you know, that's about the effort that you've put in all the months in advance of that. So I don't know. Take it or leave it. I think they're very validating. And yes, they do cost money. You shouldn't have to pay for a privilege to be acknowledged for success, in my opinion. Maybe that's naive of me. I don't know, but I think what is deserving of you will come, and if you don't have it, then work harder for it if it's something that you want. But if not, don't sweat it. Like, if you know you're doing a good job, that is integrity, and you don't need to, you know, showcase that to anybody by medal or award.
Truth.
So I think that's, yeah.
I love that. And April, I'm going to ask you the same question, but under the maybe through like the lens of, so one of the things our companies share, the People Experience Hub, is a B Corp, as I believe is Cooper Parry. And it's really important because it was not about the badge; it was very much about the ethics behind it. But again, not all accreditations necessarily fall into that camp. So I'd be curious to hear your opinion on this.
Yeah, do you know, I've got a real kind of love-hate relationship, I think, with awards and accolades and surveys and all of that, because I think the first question you have to ask yourself before you go for anything is, why are you going for it in the first place, and what do you want it to do for you? And I think if you can be honest and say, yeah, we want the badge because it's a great attraction tool, because that's, you know, people look at that, then that's fine, so long as you're true to yourself as to why that's the reason that you're going for, and you don't pretend to people that you're going to it for some other reason. There are others that I think are, you know, some of the survey types where you do get some really valuable insight, and if you're genuinely going to take some action off the back of that insight and make positive change, then that's really valuable, even if it does come at a cost. I've seen too often at places in the past, not at Cooper Parry, where we've gone for awards or done surveys, and then the data isn't shared because it's perhaps didn't come back in the way that you wanted it to. It's ignored. It's pointless spending a lot of money for nothing in that situation. So I think you have to be prepared to go for those things, even when you know that the results might not be great, because you want to use that feedback for positive change. The ones for me that are really valuable, I believe, like B Corp, are where you're doing them because off the back of it there is going to be a really actionable plan, but also part of the criteria is that you have to show a commitment to making change. So, you know, B Corp is a really rigorous process, and I could talk about B Corp, and we probably do a webinar just on B Corp, but you know, there is a need to show that you have intent to continue positive change. You can't just tick the box with it at all, far from it. But you know, having said that, yeah, of course it's nice to have a shelf full of trophies, and to be able to show people those, and I've been to many awards evenings where we've won awards, and personally it's made me very emotional. You know, a couple I've been to where I have actually cried, and not because I've had a few wines, but because it genuinely felt a lot to me to get the award, because I know how hard not just the people team work for it, but how hard every single person in the business worked to make that a reality. So you've just got to question what's the reason that you're doing this. If you're doing it just to be able to stick a load of logos on your website or showcase a load of trophies, then it's not the right reason for it. But at least be honest about it if that's why you're doing it. You know, we have a culture, don't we? The British culture is very much that we don't shout about the stuff that we do as individuals. So, you know, I speak to friends or people I've worked with that are particularly American culture. They're very open about their achievements and their successes. Now, that might make some people cringe, and it might make other people kind of envious that why can't I be like that? There's nothing I hate more than personal public recognition. I love to be recognised, like if someone sends me a note and tells me something, but to stand me up in a room and like even thinking about it brings me out in a bit of a cold, clammy sweat. But if it's for the business or the team, I have a very different sense of pride, because it's not it's not directed at me. Now, I'm not saying I'm right. I think actually we should be much better and should encourage our younger generations to accept praise and to talk about their accomplishments. And again, could get on my soapbox about how we, foster a culture of the next generation that are proud. But I think there's a balance. There's a healthy balance, and it's got to always be coupled with honesty, humility, being prepared to hold the mirror up to yourself and look inwards and go, this is what I'm doing great, but this is actually where I can also do better. And so long as the two are together, then I think they have their place.
I love that. Thank you. We're coming towards the end, which is the hour has flown by. We have had some questions in, and I'd like to ask you. I'm going to ask you guys to be a little bit quick fire about it, if you don't mind. Just so I want to make sure we can get through as much as possible. I'm going to start with one for Matt, if you don't mind, because I think this would be a great one for you, Matt. There was actually a panel question. Do you have any advice on where to start creating an employer brand strategy and campaign? So where would you start?
Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it? I think I sort of hinted at this earlier. I think I'd start with the intent, and I'd make sure that the leadership team were all behind the fact that change is needed. And so I would get the leadership team together and I would show them what was happening within their organization and help them to appreciate that change was needed.
Beautiful. That's succinct as well. Perfect.
I mean, who knew I could do that? There we are.
April, I'm going to throw one at you here. Other than senior leadership team, who do you find the internal champions are for employer branding? Are there certain roles that typically become brand advocates?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, you're in an ideal world, utopia is that every single person that works for you is a brand ambassador, and you're not just selecting people. It's helpful sometimes to find out who the detractors are. So who are the people that don't think you're doing it well, and who are the people that are maybe shouting the loudest about the stuff that isn't working? Because I think if you can talk to them and understand, then you'll learn a couple of things. Either one, you'll learn some stuff you can do better, or you'll learn that your hiring process is really wrong because they're the wrong people in the business, and you can have an honest chat that perhaps this isn't the right place for them, which I think is important. You've got to be prepared to do. But it's always useful to find those people that are your true, the ones that just wax lyrical about you. They don't need to be told. They're the ones at home telling their friends and family, come and work for us. And you overhear someone in a supermarket talking about how great their job is. They're the people, if you can kind of find those, they'll do a lot of the work for you. But yeah, you want to get to a position where, and not actually just everybody that works for you, by the way, actually people that have left that are also your brand advocates. So
you've just launched the alumni network, haven't you?
We have, yeah. It's really exciting actually. We've tried to stay connected with people that worked with us in the past before, but this is, I guess, a bit more of a structured approach to it, because we've had some amazing people work for us, and it's really sad that we would lose touch with people that have made a contribution to the growth of Cooper Parry over the years. So we've kind of got this mantra now that you're CP forever. It doesn't matter what you go on to do. If you leave to do something different, then we wish you well, and we hope that we've helped you to go on to do that better thing or to think differently. And even if you hated it at Cooper Parry, we helped you to realise that you had a different passion in life and you went and did that. I think that's some of my greatest moments are where I've had people that have worked with me that we have had honest conversations and they're left because they're not enjoying it, and I see them now doing something that they absolutely love, and I'm like, yeah, that makes me happy. So I think if you can get the people that aren't with you anymore to be your brand advocates, then you're really winning.
Love that. My last question, Viki, I'm going to throw this to you if you don't mind, because I think this will actually apply really well. How do you face the challenge of creating something that appeals to and represents the experience of the majority of people while still attracting externally? So I guess, how do you marry up who you are and who you want, I think is how I would read that.
Well, you can either go really technical on this or quite holistic in approach. So I don't know how they are wanting us to answer this question per se, but you just got to understand who you are in order to know who it is that you want. I think if you are, if you just know who your company is, who your personality is, what the tone is, what your aspirations are as a business, you'll never struggle to hire. I think April said this many times in this session, is your recruitment strategy has to be spot on, one of the most honed processes that you have within a business. And so a lot of effort has to go into that. You're never going to please everybody, and that is just something that we're going to have to accept at the upper levels of business and strategy, etc. You won't always have the buy-in of the whole SLT either, as Matt will probably know. But I think if you can cater for the vast majority, then the rest can be dealt with on a case-by-case basis, and you can manage expectations and, you know, journeys that way for the latter part. Don't be afraid to be bespoke in approach. So, you know, if you, I'm not really sure how that marries to the recruiting in, because, you know, if you strategize your recruitment needs for the whole year, you can adapt by who you're bringing in, you know, bit by bit. But I think don't put too much onus on that in terms of, ooh, is it different? No, it's not. I think it's exactly the same strategy. So know who you are and what you embody as a business, and you'll naturally attract the right individuals. I think you don't need to overly try. So put the work in internally, and everything externally will just naturally complement what you're already achieving. I don't have 2 separate strategies, if that helps. And we do perfectly fine. You obviously have to, you know, tentatively, you know, spot check every now and again to make sure you're not misaligned, but just make sure you know what you're wanting to achieve internally first. Get that nailed, and everything else.
Go.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, and like actually, please don't have 2 separate strategies, because if you're trying to sell one thing to people externally and a different thing to people internally, then, you know, people, what they see on the wrapper isn't going to be the same when they walk through the door, and they'll walk straight back out that door. So, you know,
it's that whole toxicity of we are a family analogy, isn't it? I think, you know, there are always going to be red flags that you should always avoid doing. Don't try to be something that you're not. Try to be something that you want to be. But yeah, April's right. I don't think I've ever had a double-faceted approach to retaining an attraction. Attraction's always been based on what we need practically as a business, and who it is that we hire has always been reflective of our values, so and culture. So yeah.
Well, go on, one last point and then we must wrap up now. One last point.
An easier out.
I just wanted to say I 100% agree with what we've been talking about so far. And for me, you see, I'm going to say this because I'm a brand guy, right? This is all to do with brand, right? What do we want to stand for? What's our unique value? Where are we going? And, you know, why should anybody care about that in the world generally? And then the culture needs to fit with that. The employer brand needs to marry to that. So the 2 things side by side, I think, is crucial. That for me is the reason why this sits at the top on a leadership level, and everyone needs to own it. Culture is so important. So yeah, thank you.
10 out of 10. Right, I'm afraid we are out of time. I could do this all day. Thank you, my wonderful audience, for your questions. Thank you for hanging around and hanging out with us. Most importantly, thank you to my wonderful panels. Oh, you guys have been amazing. April, Viki, Matt. It would literally have not been the same without you, because otherwise it would have been me talking for an hour and that would have been boring. If you are a people person and you are watching this, we have got our State of the People Profession survey open at the moment, which is in the documents in this chat, and I'll also be sending around via email. We want to hear from you about what you think about the people profession. Yes, thank you, Savannah, for highlighting it there. So if you've got 5 minutes, I think it takes less than that, maybe even 3 minutes, please do fill it out. We want to hear your opinions. We're going to be closing that at the end of January. Otherwise, I've been Ted. You've all been absolutely amazing, and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Take care.